When George Anderson turned 70, he didn't think much about how many years he had left. He had spent his life working hard as a carpenter, raising his 3 children with his wife Martha, and enjoying the quiet charm of their small town in Ohio. But one crisp autumn morning, while sipping coffee on the porch, he overheard his grandson Ethan reading aloud an article about how scientists could predict longevity by looking at certain signs in people over 70. George chuckled, but curiosity sparked. Could there really be clues written into the way he lived, walked, and thought that could reveal how many more years he might see? That night, he shared the thought with Martha as they ate a simple dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables. Martha, who had always been practical yet tender-hearted, leaned across the table and said, "Maybe the secret isn't about how long we live, George, but how well we live the years we're given. Still, wouldn't it be fascinating to know what the doctors and researchers have found?" And so began their journey, not just George and Martha's, but also their circle of friends, neighbors, family members, and fellow churchgoers, each of them at different stages of life after 70, each carrying different habits, strengths, and struggles. Through conversations, medical checkups, and shared experiences, they uncovered 7 powerful signs that doctors and scientists said could help predict longevity. What they learned wasn't just science, it was hope, warning, and inspiration all at once. The first sign became clear one Sunday afternoon when George and Martha attended a community picnic. As children ran across the grass and neighbors chatted, George noticed his old friend William trying to keep up with his great-grandson. William was 82, but he still moved with surprising agility. His gait was steady, his posture tall, and he walked briskly as if he still had places to be. George remembered reading that walking speed was more than just a habit. It was one of the strongest predictors of longevity. Doctors explained that those who could maintain a brisk pace even in older age tended to live longer because it reflected not only muscle strength, but also cardiovascular and neurological health. Watching William laugh as he chased the little boy across the field, George thought, if speed really tells the story of life, then William has plenty more chapters left. The second sign revealed itself in Martha's quiet resilience. She had battled high blood pressure in her 60s, but instead of giving up, she changed her diet, stayed on her medication, and learned relaxation techniques like deep breathing and gentle yoga. At 72, her heart was strong, and her doctor praised her during every checkup. Researchers had long said that cardiovascular health, blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and heart function was a major determinant of longevity. A healthy heart was like the steady drumbeat that kept life's rhythm going. Martha often reminded George, "Your heart is your engine. Treat it well, and it'll take you farther than you think." The third sign came to light through their neighbor, Ellen, a widow who lived alone but never let loneliness define her. She attended every community event, hosted book clubs, and volunteered at the local food bank. At 78, she radiated energy and joy. Studies showed that social connection was one of the most vital predictors of living longer. Isolation, on the other hand, could shorten life expectancy, increasing risks of depression, dementia, and physical decline. Ellen's life was proof that friendships and meaningful bonds could add years not only to life, but life to years. Martha once confided to George, "Ellen might be alone in her house, but she's never alone in her spirit. That's probably why she'll outlive us all." The fourth sign appeared during a doctor's visit for George himself. His physician, Dr. Peterson, asked him to grip a small device called a dynamometer, which measured hand strength. To George's surprise, the test wasn't about carpentry or tools, but about life expectancy. Hand grip strength had been linked in countless studies to overall muscle health, metabolic strength, and even survival rates. George had a strong grip from decades of woodworking, and Dr. Peterson smiled, saying, "Your hands tell me your body still has plenty of fight left in it." George left that appointment feeling oddly proud of something so simple, yet so profound. The fifth sign emerged in subtle conversations about memory. George sometimes misplaced his reading glasses or forgot where he had set down the remote, but he could still recall old stories in vivid detail. Cognitive health, scientists explained, was another powerful predictor of longevity. Seniors who kept their minds active, through reading, puzzles, conversation, and learning, were less likely to develop dementia or cognitive decline, which often shortened lifespan. Martha, who loved crossword puzzles, often teased George when he struggled with Sudoku, saying, "Keep that brain of yours sharp, or I'll outthink you into old age." They both laughed, but deep down, they knew every puzzle solved was another investment in their future. The sixth sign wasn't physical, but emotional. Their daughter Rachel once brought home a research article that described how optimism, simply having a hopeful outlook on life, was linked to a longer lifespan. At first, George dismissed it. "How can attitude change biology?" he asked. But then he thought about his friend Frank, a man who always saw the glass half empty. Frank rarely smiled, always complained about the government, the weather, or his aching back. At 73, he already looked defeated by life. On the other hand, Ellen's laughter, William's energy, and Martha's steady calm seemed to keep them glowing. Studies showed that optimism reduced stress, improved immunity, and lowered risks of chronic disease. George realized that perhaps the spirit indeed whispered to the body, "Keep going." The seventh and final sign revealed itself in the most unexpected way. One winter morning, Martha slipped on an icy step outside their home. Though the fall wasn't severe, it shook them both. At the hospital, the doctor explained that mobility and balance were critical predictors of longevity. Seniors who suffered falls often faced complications that could drastically reduce life expectancy. But those who maintained flexibility, balance, and muscle strength through regular activity tended to live much longer. From that day forward, George and Martha joined a local Tai Chi class designed for seniors, learning slow, graceful movements that strengthen their balance. It became not only exercise but also a shared ritual, a way to embrace life together. As the years passed, George and Martha held these 7 signs close to heart. They weren't magical formulas or guarantees of immortality, but they were guideposts, reminders that life after 70 wasn't simply about counting the days, but about making the days count. Walking briskly through the park, tending their hearts with healthy food and checkups, laughing with friends, gripping life with strength, keeping their minds sharp, nurturing optimism, and balancing their steps, these became their daily acts of living. Their children and grandchildren began noticing the difference. At family gatherings, while others sometimes sank into chairs after dinner, George and Martha were often the first to rise, leading walks, starting games, or sharing stories that lit up the room. Ethan once whispered to his SI,